Hello, happy Sunday, and it is the latest edition of the Awesome Sauce EDU podcast. If you are just joining us and you are used to listening to the Kansas Moonshot podcast, I have shifted gears a little bit. I upgraded to the Awesome Sauce EDU just so I could expand the idea out, and it wasn't going to limit me just to school redesign, but I could expand it out to any amazing thing happening in schools across the country. I know I keep promising some interviews, and they're in the works, but I haven't had a chance to set up a good interview yet. I was looking at my schedule this upcoming week, and it's like meeting every single day after school. My son has 3 basketball games and a basketball practice. It's just like, it's busy. So I'm going to try to knock out some interviews so that I can share some of the great things happening across the country, because like there are some incredible things happening. Even with all of this uncertainty, even with schools going remote, schools going hybrid, all these different scenarios, there are some incredible things going on. If you would like to be on the show, please reach out to me, email me, send me a message on Twitter. You can find me at Teach Like a Ninja. I would love to have you on the show just to talk about something really awesome going on in your classroom for the Awesome Sauce EDU podcast. Now, I've been playing around as we shifted to this new format of Awesome Sauce EDU, and I've been playing around with what do I want in this podcast? And there are a couple of things that I want to make sure that I always include. One thing I've started doing, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love podcasts. It always gives me inspiration, gives me great ideas. But one thing I've started doing is I've been jotting down some great quotes that come from some of the podcasts that I listen to. So one thing I want to kick off each episode with is a quote from a podcast episode that I hear. I've got a list going. So this week's quote was on the Leader of Learning podcast, and it was an interview with Ken Shelton. Now, Ken Shelton has his own podcast, which is phenomenal. Ken Shelton and Dee Lanier on the Liberated Educator podcast. But in this instance, Ken was a guest on the Leader of Learning podcast. And he was asked about this idea of being a thought leader. Like, I think the question was something like, how do you feel being a thought leader in certain areas? And I really liked his response. So he said that he's not really a thought leader. He considers himself a thought provacateur, meaning he asks really good questions. He's really good at inspiring new thoughts. And I like this idea because sometimes we get caught in this idea of wanting to have, when you consider a thought leader, sometimes it has like a negative connotation, like you're leading the way, you've got all the answers. And to me, a leader is someone who can really step up and ask those right questions that get you to think more deeply. When you're in your classrooms, you want to be that thought leader who inspires your students to come up with their own answers. And I struggle with this all the time. I'm constantly wanting to say, oh, I could just tell you what the answer is. But sometimes being that good leader is helping people find their own answers. And so I like this idea from Ken Shelton of being a thought provocateur instead of just a thought leader, and really engaging and enriching the conversation and getting people to think more deeply and reevaluate their beliefs, reevaluate what they truly think is important, what they value, and getting people to think deeper about a wide range of topics. So that is this week's Quote of the Week. Quote of the Week! If you have ever watched any of my videos for my students, I always have a quote of the day. I love quotes, so I will continue to keep the ball rolling. Now, I do always want to kick it off with a really great quote. When I interview people, I might try to work that in as well. But the other thing that I think I want to make sure to bring to this conversation is some sort of tip that will help you in your day-to-day teaching life. And today's tip is something that I found online, and I can't remember where I found it, but I would love to give credit if anybody knows. I think it was just it was either a Pinterest tweet or Pinterest post or a tweet. But the tip was to create some sort of daily check-in form with kids. And so that's what I did. I have a daily check-in form that my students fill out every day. We are currently in a hybrid model, so even if they're on remote learning or they're in person, they always fill in this daily check-in form. And there are a couple of parts in it. One of them is like your typical name, hour, and then I have a question of the day. And sometimes the question of the day is really thoughtful or connected to content, and sometimes it's just silly and fun. For example, one day the question of the day was, is a hot dog a sandwich? And the kids loved it. They had a lot of fun discussing it later on. That's not the most important part. That part is to get them thinking, get them discussing. But the most important part is the next question. And the next question is there are 6 Bitmoji examples. And of those 6 Bitmojis, the question is, how is your day going? Or how are you feeling right now? And they are tired, angry, sad, fantastic, excited, or just okay. And then after that, the questions are, is there anything you need from me? And then anything else you want to tell me. Now, those Bitmojis have been great because if you know anything about Google Forms, you can see data really quickly. And what I can do is, as they fill out these forms, I can notice trends. And this has already come up with a couple of students where I noticed that, they were sad for a full week. And I was able to contact our school counselor and do check-ins with them just to see how we can best support them. There were a couple of kids that were angry. And I was able to have a conversation with them either in a breakout room or pull them out into the hall or just kneel down at their desk like, hey, what's going on? Or sometimes it's an email, depending on the students. And by now, I know most of my students' comfort levels, and some of them I know would respond more effectively if I send them an email before we initiate like a more in-person conversation. So I've gotten a lot of great feedback. It also gives me good information if I have, there was one student who was happy, angry, happy. And I was able to pinpoint that angry moment and just ask, like, what's going on? And it just turned out that it was just a bad morning. Like, woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And we all have those moments. But it gives me good insight into how the students are feeling right now. Now, I do a similar thing. I don't do reading logs. But what I do is I have the kids fill out, we read every day, and I have them fill out just a reading check-in. Again, I keep it very simple. Name, page number started on, page number ended on, and then the question is, tell me something about what you read. And I don't care what they say. It could be about a character. It could be, I was falling asleep while I was reading today. Something to reflect on the reading process that day or something interesting they read. Again, same thing. I'm looking for trend lines. So if I notice that a student has started on a different page every single day, like they said they read page 50 to 55 one day, and the next day they read 25 to 32, well, something's wrong. Either they need a bookmark or we need to have a discussion about, are we really reading? Where's the struggle in trying to figure out where the book started? So that's given me some great insight, again, about trends and patterns. If I see a student reading a different book each day, conversation there. If I notice the student is really enjoying the same type of book, same genre book, I can have a conversation, maybe make some book recommendations based on that. So again, it's all about data collection, and it's not graded. It's just another piece of evidence that I can use to help support my students and give them exactly what they need. Now, one final bonus tip that I'm going to share is my students fill their daily check-in form out when we're remote as they're coming into the breakout or to the Zoom session. And what I do is they come into the Zoom session. I've got my spreadsheet with all their responses coming in on one screen. I'm lucky to have a Surface Pro, and then I've also got my desktop computer. So you could still do this on the main screen, but I have the spreadsheet pulled up, and as soon as they fill it out, I send them to a breakout room to have a discussion about it. What this does is it helps me ensure that every student fills it out, and it helps me like switch up the groups sometimes. So I may send them to a group with a couple students that I know need a little bit of a push. So I may send them to a room with someone that I know is going to be able to keep the conversation going. And so it's been a great way to manage this online piece. Because like I do that with a lot of things where you fill this out and then I'm going to send you to a breakout room. And then when there are 2 kids left who are still sitting there, I can have a conversation with them about, hey, what's going on? A lot of times it's they weren't paying attention and so they don't know what we're doing. Or they were paying attention, but they're having a hard time finding the assignment. And so I can help direct them once everybody else has been sent to those breakout rooms. And then I bring them all back and we start class. So those are just a couple of quick tips, things that I found success with in my virtual classroom when we're remote. I do some of the same forms when we're in person as well, just without the breakout rooms. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this brings you value. Like I said, I would love to bring guests onto the show. So if you would like to be on the show, please message me on Twitter at TeachLikeANinja. I'm reaching out to a couple of people. I'm hoping to be on a couple of additional podcasts just to share kind of what I'm doing in my classroom on their podcast. So shout out to them, and I'll give them a shout out on here as soon as I record those episodes. That is all I've got for this week. It's going to be a great week. You've got this. You can do it. I believe in you. If you are listening to the podcast right now, if you could post a review, that would be great. I believe it helps with the algorithm, helps people find the podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, awesome. I have dropped the ball on keeping these posted on YouTube, so I will try to get that uploaded today so that you can see the video version on YouTube. And again, hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the video. I will post a link to those daily forms, a copy of those, just so you can see what they look like. Feel free to borrow them and use them if they're helpful for you. And that is all I've got for this week's episode. Until next time, looking forward and be awesome. Bye.